Hey everyone, my name's Jason Bell. In this episode, I am back in Las Vegas, Nevada playing 2-5 No Limit Hold'em at Bellagio. In this session, I actually played 2 of them. I got into town pretty late on Thursday night and continued the next morning. There's a lot to get to in this session. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's get right into it. Okay folks, this is the very first hand dealt to me this session. I just finished setting up and hit the record button. I'm under the gun and look down at pocket 9s. Definitely openable from this position, but this is a pretty tricky hand to play post-flop and from out of position, unless you hit a set of course. I open the action for $15, the cutoff makes the call and the big blind calls as well. Given there were no 3 bets, neither is going to have a premium hand here. So we're 3 ways to a flop, which is ace, 8, ace with 2 clubs. Alright, 2 of the aces in the deck are already accounted for face up on the table here. Odds are these other 2 villains don't have one. Big blind checks, I check, and the cutoff checks as well, so that pretty much narrows it down further that it's unlikely these 2 have an ace in their hand. The turn is the 4 of hearts, so a backdoor heart draw is now a possibility. The big blind checks, and as nobody has shown an interest in this hand, my 9s here are likely pretty good, so I put out a bet of $30, about 2/3 the size of the pot. The cutoff makes the call and the big blind folds. Not sure what the cutoff could be calling here with. You would think he would have raised if he had an ace, given that there are 2 flush draws out there now. Could be on a club or a hard draw. Maybe he's disguising an ace. Again, it's unlikely, but it's possible. The river is the 8 of hearts. Okay, so given the board is now double paired and the backdoor heart draw came in, if I want to take this pot down, I've got to put out a bet that's large enough to fold out any heart draws that hit, but small enough that if he did have an ace or an 8 and he raised, it'd be an easy fold, so a bet fold strategy. I put out a bet of $65, he only had about $135 behind, and yep, that's what he does. He jams for all of his $135, which pretty much confirms he does have an ace or maybe an 8. I doubt he'd jam with a flush on a double paired board, and typically at these stakes, even at 2-5, people that raise on the river tend to be pretty nutted, so this was a pretty easy fold and I let this one go. Okay, after the first hand, I added on for an additional $100, so I'm in the game now for a total of $600. In this hand, I'm in the under the gun position again. It's now 20 minutes later, and I look down at ace-king offsuit. Heck yeah. I open the action for $15. The middle position player makes the call, and the big blind calls as well. Here, I finally remember to put out my card protector that I've been using these past couple of sessions. It's a pretty good one. Enjoying it so far, just struggling to remember to use it from time to time. Regardless, we're 3 ways to a flop, which is 9, 10, king with 2 hearts. Pretty wet board, but not a bad flop for ace-king, that's for sure. Top, I will take it. Big blind checks, and I put out a bet of $30. Middle position player folds, and the big blind folds as well. Well, pretty quick and easy hand here, but I want to show you guys these premiums. Okay, we're now about 30 minutes into the session. It's about 9 o'clock in the evening, and there's a pretty decent wait list. We're waiting for a couple of folks to take their seats at the moment and a couple to return from a break. So in the meantime, we're actually 4-handed here. In this hand, I'm in the big blind and look down at pocket 8s. The under the gun, or is it the cutoff? Opens the action for $15. Now I'm the only one that makes the call here. So we're heads up to a flop, which is king 5-10, all diamonds. Well, I don't have a diamond in my hand, but odds are he doesn't have 2 of them in his hand either. I checked the pre-flop aggressor, and he puts out a bet of $10. I decide to float here for 1 street at such a good price, so that's what I do. I throw in the call. The turn is the 6 of hearts. I check, and now he bets $35, about 2/3 the size of the pot. There's just too much that can beat me here. Any king, any 10, he could be on a diamond or a straight draw. I didn't hit my set, and no real reason to stick around at this point, so I'll let this one go. Okay, this is a couple of hands later. One person came back, but another is in the process of leaving, so we're still 4-handed at this point. I'm on the button and look down at 4-5 offsuit. This is definitely an automatic fold in a full ring, and probably even 6-handed too. But it folds to me, and this actually might be a good spot to steal the blind, so I open the action for $15. Unfortunately, my attempted steal doesn't work, and the big blind makes the call. So we're heads up to a flop, which is 6, ace, 10 rainbow. Big blind checks, and I'm going to try to steal this thing again, especially with that ace out there, so I put out a C bet of $15, but the big blind makes the call again. Alarm bells are definitely ringing now. I'm pretty much giving up at this point. Yes, I've got a backdoor straight draw, but the odds of hitting that are very remote. The turn is the king of clubs. Yep, straight is 100% gone, and I am 100% done with this hand now. Big blind checks, and I of course check as well. River's the five of spades, so I make bottom pair here, but that is most definitely not going to be good. The big blind now puts out a bet of $40, and this is another pretty easy fold here, so I let this one go. Okay, we're now about 45 minutes into the session, and I've added on for an additional $100, so I'm in the game for a total of $700 now. Here I'm in the hijack position and look down at ace-10 offsuit. The under the gun limps, and lately I've seen a lot of limp raises from the under the gun position. It used to not be as common as it is now, so I'll need to proceed a bit cautiously here. I generally play a raise or fold strategy when entering a pot, except occasionally from the big blind or button. However, when there's someone that acts in front of you and you want to raise, you generally want to put in 3 to 5 times the big blind, plus add any additional money that was put in the pot, right? So in this case, 3 times the big blind is $15, plus the 5 the limper put in, so I put in a raise to $20 here, and the under the gun is the only caller. So we're heads up to a flop, which is 3-10-4 with 2 hearts. The under the gun checks, and I put in about a 40% C bet of $20, and the under the gun raises to $80. Okay, this generally means he's either on a flush draw, maybe a straight draw, or has a set and is trying to build a pot. I'm not going to go anywhere quite yet with my top, so I put in the call. Turn is the 3 of diamonds. This time the under the gun checks, which is pretty surprising given he just raised on the flop, so I'm thinking he may not have a set here now. I check as well and plan to reassess things on the river. The river is the jack of clubs. The under the gun checks again, and now I'm likely pretty good here. Thinking he may have something like ace-4 of hearts or maybe king-9 of hearts, something like that. So any bet here on the river is likely not going to get through. I check and he announces king high. I show and take this one down. Decent pot here of just over $200, so I'll take it. Okay, in this hand, I'm in the big blind position and look down at ace-5 offsuit. The under the gun opens for $15 and it folds all the way around to myself, and I make the call here with my ace. Would much prefer a suited ace-5, that's for sure, especially against an under the gun raise. Could have anything here from premiums to mid to high pocket pair to some suited broadways. So we're heads up to a flop, which is ace-6 jack rainbow. I will take that. Given I have one of those aces, it's less likely he has one as well, but certainly possible. I check to the pre-flop aggressor and he checks back. Okay, so maybe he's got kings, queens, or maybe tens, or is on a draw perhaps. The turn is the 8 of clubs. Time to start putting some money into this pot with my top pair. So I put out a bet of $15, about half the pot. He makes the quick call, which usually means he's on a draw. So he could have something like king queen here, or maybe possibly 9-10 suited. The river's the 7 of spades. This time I put out a bet of $40, and if he was on a draw with like 9-10, he'd definitely put in a raise and it'd be an easy fold. However, he just makes the call. I show my ace-5 in the under the gun mucks. Maybe he got attached to kings or queens. That's really the only thing I can think of, but I'll take it. Here I'm in the middle position and look down at ace-queen offsuit. I open the action for $15, the hijack folds, and the cutoff then announces a 3-bet to $50. Not sure I'm overly liking this. However, the small blind and big blind call the 50. Well, definitely priced in now, that's for sure. I guess a case could actually be made to 4-bet squeeze light here, but would much prefer this hand to be suited to do that. So I make the call here instead. I'm actually kind of a fan of this. Used to playing very multi-way in Texas, so I feel pretty comfortable post-flop here. So we're 4 ways to a flop, which is 4, 6, 8, all spades. Okie dokie, I've got the third nut flush draw here. Both the blinds check, and I check as well to the pre-flop aggressor, and now the cutoff bet's $120, which is pretty sizable. So he 3-bet pre-flop and now bet a sizable amount into 3 other players post-flop. So it's going to be pretty strong here. I'm thinking he's got kings with like the king of spades. It's possible he's got aces with the ace of spades. I hold that ace blocker, so it's less likely he's got that or something like ace king. Small blind folds and the big blind makes the call. What the heck? I think one, if not both, are representing a premium spade here. I let this one go. Don't think my queen's going to hold up, even if the draw does hit. The turn is the queen of diamonds. Even with the way this hand has played out so far, no way my top pair would have been good here. The big blind checks and now the cutoff jams for $280, and the big blind couldn't call fast enough. He immediately turns over ace jack of spades for the flopped ace high flush. Cutoff mucks and had to have had kings for sure. Glad I got out of this one when I did. In this hand, I'm in the small blind and look down at pocket fours. This is probably my least favorite position to play these from. Pretty easy fold if there's a raise and a 3-bet in front of me for sure, but here the hijack limps and the cutoff min raises to $10. Don't see that too often here at Bellagio in the 2-5 game. Folds to me, and what do you do here with a low pocket pair? I think folding is acceptable, and I think that raising to what, like $40 feels a bit on the loose side. I think this is more of a set mining hand, so I call the $10 instead. Big blind calls, and the hijack throws in the extra $5 and calls as well. So we have multi-way action again, and the flop is Jack 8-7 rainbow. Well, hopefully this checks through and I can hit a set here on the turn or river, and that's what happens. It checks through and the turn is in fact a 4. I will take it. It does bring in a backdoor club draw, but it's time to start building up this pot, so I put about a half pot bet of $20. The big blind folds, the hijack calls, and the cutoff folds. You know, what could the hijack have here? He limped pre-flop, which means he's going to have a middling hand here. Could have something like ace-8 or maybe 9-10, but I feel like if he had that, he would have definitely raised my $20 bet, especially if a club draw is now a possibility, so it's doubtful. The river's the queen of clubs, so that completes the backdoor club draw. Not really scared of this, as I think he still would have raised on the turn with the club draw, so I put out a bet of $45, and the hijack calls pretty quickly. I show my set, and it's good. The hijack mucks. Okay, folks, this is the very next hand. I just finished cleaning up my chips and looked down at the best pre-flop hand in poker, pocket aces. Heck yeah. The under the gun opens for $15. It folds to the cutoff, who makes the call, and a 3-bet squeeze is definitely in order, so I put out a bet of $65. However, both the under the gun and cutoff players fold. Another quick one, but pretty cool to see back-to-back hands like this, that's for sure. Okay, this is a full rotation later. I'm on the button and look down at another pretty one, pocket jacks. The middle position limps, the hijack raises to $15, and yep, another 3-bet is in order, so I bumped this one up to $50. The middle position player folds, and the hijack makes the call. So I'm initially thinking he could have something like ace-king off, ace-queen, or a middling pocket pair. We're heads up to a flop, which is 3 king deuce rainbow. Dang it, that darn king. Hijack checks, and I probably could put in a c-bet here. Odds are he didn't hit the flop. However, I elect to check in this instance. The turn is the 8 of diamonds. The hijack checks again, and now I know I'm in good shape. So I put out a bet of $50, and the hijack folds. So I take another one down. I'll take it. Okay, folks, this is now the 4th hand in a row where I'm seeing a pocket pair. I will take it for sure. Here I'm in the middle position seat and look down at pocket 10s. Again, this is another one that plays pretty tricky post-flop. In this hand, the under the gun raises to $15. Definitely putting in a 3-bet here, so I 3-bet to $45. However, the hijack calls, and the under the gun player calls as well. Now we've got multi-way action in a 3-bet pot, so need to proceed cautiously. The flop is deuce 4-8 with 2 hearts. All right, pretty darn good flop for 10s. I've got an overpair here. The under the gun checks, and I put out a c-bet of $45. The hijack then raises to $100. The under the gun folds, and this raise is telling me he's either got a set or is on a heart draw. It's just over a min raise, so I decide to float a street and put out a call. Pot's brewing a bit, just under $350. The turn is the king of diamonds. Now I check to the aggressor, and he checks back. What the heck? This happened again, so this is telling me he's now likely on a heart draw. The river is the queen of spades. Hearts didn't hit. My 10s may be pretty good here, so I put out a bet of $125, but the hijack raises to $350. What? Okay, he's definitely got a set here. Has to be pretty darn nutted, so I let this one go. He told me after the hand he had pocket queen, so right into a monster here. Okay, in this hand, I'm in the small blind and look down at queen 10 of diamonds. It folds the cutoff, who limps. Action's on me, and with a couple of suited broadways, a raise is definitely in order, so I bumped this one up to $25. Big blind makes the call, and the cutoff calls as well. So we're 3 ways to a flop, which is 7-6-5 with 2 diamonds. Yes, sir, I will take that. 2 overs and a diamond draw. The c-bet is definitely mandatory here, so I put out a bet of $30. Big blind folds, and the cutoff makes the call. Okay, so the cutoff open limped pre-flop, so his range is going to be pretty wide here, and he called 5-6-7 post-flop, so he could have anything from king 7 to ace 6 or any number of hands here. The turn is the jack of hearts. Time to slow down a bit in the event I don't hit, so I make the check here, and the cutoff checks as well. The river's the 8 of clubs. Okay, so now my hand's officially dead. I check, and now the cutoff puts out a bet of $45. Easy fold here, so that's what I do. Okay, prior to this hand, I added on for another $100, so I'm in the game for a total of $800 now. In this hand, I'm in the big blind and look down at queen 8 offsuit. The hijack opens for $15. The button makes the call, and I make the call as well. Pot is a little under $50, and the flop is queen 8 ace with 2 spades. Yes, sir, bottom 2. I will take it. I check to the pre-flop aggressor, and the hijack puts out a bet of $15. The button folds, and with that spade draw out there, a raise is definitely in order, so I raise this one up to $50, and the hijack makes the call. Alright, so I'm thinking he's got an ace here for sure, or at least is on a draw. The turn is the 7 of hearts. This time I want to charge him for any draws or an ace. Is he capped? So I put out a bet of $100, but he ends up folding pretty quickly here. Guess it was a bit too much. Maybe he had Jack 10 suited and it was on a gutter draw, or maybe he had like King Queen or something. Regardless, I take this one down, so I'll take it. Okay, in this hand, I am in the premier position on the button, of course, and look down at a pretty one. Ace, king of spades. Yes, sir. The end of the gun opens for 15 bucks. The middle position player calls the $15. Oh, yeah, a squeeze is 100% mandatory. So I put in a raise to $60. The end of the gun calls, and the middle position player gets out of the way. So now it's unlikely he's got aces or kings, but queens or jacks or a high middling pocket pair are definitely in his range. Maybe ace queen or possibly ace jack suited as well. So we're heads up to a flop, which is 6-10 ace with 2 hearts. Yes, sir. Top. I will take it. The under the gun checks, and I put out about a half pot bet of $75, and the under the gun immediately jams for his remaining stack of $230. I've got top and a backdoor nut flush and straight draw. $155 to call, so I've got to be good here 30% of the time for this to be a profitable call, right? I mean, I'm obviously behind on sets and 2 pairs, but really the only 2-pair combo he likely would have raised with from under the gun is ace 10 of diamonds or ace 10 of clubs, right? I don't think he would have raised with ace 6, but you never know. Questionable that he would have raised with pocket 6s, but definitely with pocket 10s, and there are 3 combos of that, but I'm obviously ahead on flush draws and weaker aces, so I make the call. The turn is the 8 of hearts, and the river is the 4 of diamonds. I show my ace king, and he shows ace queen. Yes, sir. I take this one down. Nice size pot here. Okay, in this hand, I'm in the cutoff position and look down at King Queen offsuit. The low jack limps. Yep, limping is still very common at these stakes. I, of course, will be raising this one up, so I put out a bet of $20. Folds back around to the low jack who makes the call, so we're heads up to a flop, which is 8-6-10 rainbow. Now this flop is likely going to hit his range more than mine. The low jack checks, and with my 2 overs, I think a C bet is in order here, so I throw out a half pot bet of $20, and the low jack quickly folds, so I take this one down pretty quickly here. Quick and easy hand, but I'll take it. Okay, another quick one here. I'm on the button and look down at another premium, pocket queens. Folds around to myself, and I put out my standard raise to $15, and the small blind makes the call, so we're heads up to a flop, which is 8-queen-7 with 2 diamonds. Okay. Small blind checks, and man, I've got top set here, hoping he's connected at least a little with this board. I put out a bet of $25, but he quickly folds. Dang. Well, at least I got something here. Okay, after playing for about 3.5 hours last night, we are now back at the Bellagio nice and early, and of course there's still a few players hanging around from the previous night. First interesting hand starts a little after 7 a.m. Here I'm on the button and look down at King Queen of Diamonds. The hijack limps, and I'm 40% of the way to a royal flush, so I raise this one up to $20. Big blind makes the call, and the hijack calls as well. So we're 3 ways to a flop, which is Jack 6 Jack with 2 diamonds. I will take that. Big blind checks, the hijack checks, and I put out a $25 C bet with my flush draw and 2 overs. However, both the big blind and hijack quickly fold, so I take this one down pretty early here. Okay, we're not even a full rotation later. I'm under the gun and look down at pocket aces. I open for my standard $15. Middle position player makes the call, the button calls, and the small blind calls. Alright, on one hand I'm glad more money is put into the pot, but on the other, these aces will perform much better if heads up. Pot is $65 and we're 4 ways to a flop, which is King 3-5 with 2 clubs. Alright, got an overpair naturally, but also have a nut flush draw and I guess technically a straight flush draw. Both are going to be rare to hit obviously. The small blind checks, and yes, I plan to bet into 3 other people here, which indicates some significant strength, but I gotta do it and build that pot if I can. So I put out a bet of $30. Middle position player folds, the button calls, and the small blind makes the fold as well. So we're heads up to a turn, which is the 9 of hearts. Okay, now I want to charge any kings and possibly flush draw, so I put out a nearly pot-sized bet of $120, but the button folds pretty quickly. Maybe it was a bit too big and should have bet something in the $50 to $75 range, but I upsized in this instance, and maybe it cost me a bit, but I take it down regardless. Okay, this is the very next hand. Just wrapped up putting away my chips. I'm in the big blind and look down at Queen 5 of clubs. The under the gun limps, the hijack raises to $20, and you know, I will typically call any suited face card in a single raise pot. So that's what I do here. I call the 20 and the under the gun calls as well. So we're three ways to a flop, which is 4-9-5, all hearts. Yep, monotone flop again. I check with my bottom pair, the under the gun checks, and the hijack checks as well, so it checks through. The turn is the 5 of diamonds. All right, I've upgraded to trips here. I think it's time to start building the pot a bit, so I put out a bet of $25. However, the under the gun raises to $65. The hijack gets out of the way, and you know, with my trips, I don't think I'm going to go anywhere quite yet, so I make the call. It's also kind of an odd spot to raise unless he's on a straight or flush draw. I mean, he limped pre-flop, and pocket fours fits that bill, but he wouldn't raise with a boat. I don't think he'd raise with a flopped flush either. I've got the other five, so it's very unlikely he's got the last five in the deck, so he has to be on a draw. The river is the ace of spades. I check and being a little bit confused, and now he bets $150. This just doesn't seem like he has anything here but a busted draw. I mean, if he did have a busted draw, the only way you can win this pot is by betting, of course, and a pretty large amount too, which is what happened here. So I put in the call, and the under the gun shows 6-3 of diamonds, and he did in fact have a busted draw. I show and take this one down. Nice size pot here. Okay, this hand is just about a full rotation later. I'm under the gun and look down at King Queen of diamonds. I open the action for $15 and the low jack then 3 bets to $40. Folds back around to me, and again, I'm 40% of the way to a royal flush, so I'm not going to go anywhere quite yet, so I make the call. We're heads up to a flop, which is ace, queen, 6, rainbow. Well, no diamonds here, so a flush is out the window. I check to the 3-better, and he checks behind, so this is telling me he may not have an ace here. You know, I have a king blocker to pocket kings, so my queen may be good here. The turn is the 9 of clubs. This time I lead out for $50 with my queen, and the low jack makes the call. A little bit baffled here. The river is the jack of diamonds. I check, and now the low jack bets $100. You know, was he 3-betting light with like king 10 or maybe with a premium pocket pair and slow paying a bit? He's not giving off any tells either, even on the bet sizing. This sizing kind of feels a bit value-y. You know, if he bets something like $200, I'd probably be more inclined to call. Same with anything smaller, so I'll let this one go. In this hand, I'm in the big blind and look down at pocket 8s. The middle position player opens the action for $20. The button makes the call, and I call as well. I think a squeeze is also an option here. Definitely with pocket 10s, maybe 9s and above, but with 8s or below, I think a call from this position is acceptable too. So we're 3 ways to a flop, which couldn't be much better. 8, king, queen, rainbow. I check to the pre-flop aggressor, but he checks and the button checks as well, so it checks through. The turn is the 5 of spades. Gotta start building up this pot a bit, so I put out a half pot bet of $30. However, both the middle position and button players fold, and pretty quickly too. Gosh dang it. It's pretty rare to hit a set like, 9% chance or something like that, and when you do, you really need to get maximum value, so maybe I should have checked again on the turn. I don't know, still thinking I bet the right amount and on the right street. Just the other guys just didn't connect with the board at all. Oh well. Okay, in this hand, I'm in the big blind again and look down at 6-10 of diamonds. The action folds all the way around to the button, who raises to $20. I make the call with my suited 3-gapper, so we're heads up to a flop, which is jack 9 queen with 2 diamonds. I will take that. That's about as good as it gets here. Flush draw and an open-ended straight draw. I check to the aggressor, and he puts out a quick c-bet of $20. Yep, time to bump this one up for sure, so I raise this one up to $50. The button doesn't take too much time and throws in the call, which generally a quick call means he's on a draw, so need to be mindful of that. The turn is the 7 of diamonds. Yes, sir. Definitely putting in some money into this pot, but what's the right sizing here? I decide on a bet of $80, which is about 60% of the pot. The button thinks about this for a bit, checks his cards, and ends up letting this one go. Maybe a $50 bet might have gotten through. You know, maybe he had a king or possibly a 10 and was on a draw. Could have also paired with that queen out there, but based on how quickly he called, I think he was definitely on a draw. Regardless, I take this one down. Okay, here I'm in the cutoff position and look down at 6-7 of diamonds. This is definitely openable from this position, so that's what I do. I open for my standard $15, however, the button 3 bets to $40. Folds back around to me, and this is not even a 3 times raise, so I make the call, see what happens on the flop. The flop comes 10-4-6, all spades. Yep, another monotone flop. I check to the button, he puts out a tiny bet of $20. Not going anywhere now with my middle pair, plus odds are he didn't flop a flush, so I make the call. The turn is the 5 of diamonds. Alright, now I've upgraded to an open-ended straight draw. I check and now the button bets $40. Again, very tiny in relation to the pot. What, like 30% or so? so I make the call. The river is the 9 of diamonds. Okay, officially done with this hand. I check, and now the button thinks for a solid minute before throwing out a sizable overbet of $230. I couldn't fold quick enough, so I let this one go. He ended up showing me King 7 of spades after I turned the camera off. Glad I lost the minimum here. Okay, finally at a good position at the table for vlogging. Took a couple of hours. Here I'm in the middle position and look down at pocket jacks. Heck yeah. The under the gun opens for $20 and a 3-bet is 100% mandatory here, so I bumped this one up to $60. Folds back around to the under the gun player who makes the call. It takes him a bit, but he says, all right, I'll call one time. Okay, given we didn't see a 4-bet, pretty much rules out aces, kings, and probably ace-king suited as well. So we're heads up to a flop, which is 8-7 deuce rainbow. The under the gun checks, and I put out about a 40% c-bet of $50. The under the gun thinks about this for a bit and ends up folding pocket nines face up. Was I giving away something perhaps? Would have made the same c-bet with a couple of suited overcards as well. Regardless, I take this one down, so I'll take it. Okay, in this hand, I'm in the small blind and look down at one of my favorites, ace-5 suited. You know, some people have favorite hands they like to play all the time, you know, like their lucky hands or something, whether it's like 6-9 of spades or 7-8 of hearts, you know, whatever. I don't really have one and never really have had one, but if I did, it'd probably be this one, ace-5 of hearts. Had some pretty memorable pots with this hand. Here, the middle position player opens the action for $15. It folds to me, and this is a pretty good spot to 3-bet for sure, and with this hand, so that's what I do. I raise this one up to $45, and the middle position player makes the call. So we're heads up to a flop, which is 9-jack-7 with 2 clubs and 1 diamond. Well, there goes a flush and straight potential. I check, not really much that can improve my hand, even an ace now as well. The middle position player throws out a $100 chip, and the way he threw it out there also made me think he was pretty nutted here. No reason to stick around, and my favorite hand has to go into the muck, so pretty easy fold here. Okay, in this hand, I'm in the big blind and look down at ace-queen offsuit. Cutoff opens the action for $15. It folds to me, and I think a raise is generally in order most of the time with this hand and in this position. However, I decided to change things up a bit. I've been playing pretty much a raise or fold strategy most of the session, so I make the call here instead. We're heads up to a flop, which is 4 ace-5 with 2 hearts. All right, top pair, pretty strong kicker. I check to the aggressor, and he puts out a c-bet of $20. Yeah. With 2 hearts out there, gotta raise this one up for sure, so that's what I do. I'll bump this one up to $60. The cutoff checks his cards, thinks about this for a bit, and decides he doesn't want to participate any longer, and he makes the fold, so I'll take this one down. In this hand, I'm in the middle position and look down at pocket tens again. I open the action for $15 and it folds around to the small blind who makes the call. He could have anything from a small pocket pair to a suited connector here. So we're heads up to a flop, which is 4-3-7 with 2 clubs. Nice to see a few of these low card flops with overpairs, that's for sure. Small blind checks and I put out a c-bet of $15 and he makes the call. Is he on a draw here perhaps? The turn is the queen of hearts. This card really shouldn't change much here. The small blind checks again and now I bump up the bet sizing a bit. This time to $35. He thinks about this for a bit and lets it go. Pretty quick and easy hand here, but I'll take it. Okay, folks, this is the very next hand and the last recorded hand of the session. I'm under the gun, just finished cleaning up my chips and look down at King, Queen of Diamonds. Seems like I've gotten this hand a few times this session. I open the action for my standard $15. It folds around to the cutoff, who then 3-bets to $45. Folds back to me and I make the call here. His range is going to be relatively tight, so I need to proceed cautiously. We're heads up to a flop, which is 7-King-6 with 2 hearts. All right, top pair, pretty good kicker. I check and the cutoff puts out a bet of $65. Not going anywhere quite yet with my top pair, so I make the call. The turn is the 8 of spades, so this brings in a backdoor spade draw now. I check and the cutoff checks as well. Okay, so he raised pre-flop, c-bet with a king high flop, but checked the turn. I mean, if he had a king, you'd think he'd continue betting in case I was on a hard draw. So I think I might be in the lead here with my top pair. The river is the 4 of hearts, so that brings in the front door flush. I decide on a bet size of $100. He thinks about this for a moment and makes the call. He turns over ace-king offsuit. Oh man, what a cooler. You know, I probably should have bet more of a pot-sized bet here. Would that have gotten him off the hand? Not sure. Regardless, I'll lose this one, and it kind of sucks right at the end of the session, but it was a fun session nonetheless. Okay, so got in pretty late last night to Vegas. Went to the Bellagio, played 2-5 for a little over 3 hours. Got pretty tired, went back to the hotel. and then decided to continue this session this morning. Played for a little over 3 hours again for a total session length of about 6.5 hours. Last night, played about average, made a couple of mistakes, and this morning the same as you saw in the video. Last night I was in for 800, out for 833, and then this morning I was in for 500, out for 474. So for a combined profit of $7. So yeah, made some mistakes, but I'm happy to be here, happy to be making these vlogs, and hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.